Yo everyone, Skeptic here. Today, I wanted to upload my Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth experience because recently I've been streaming the game a lot on Twitch, and I think about a week or 2 weeks ago, I finally finished the game, and I've done all the side cases as well. So I did the mainline story quest, and I did the end game content as well. And I wanted to give out my kind of review on the game, if you will. So without further ado, let's just go straight into it. So the first few things that I want to talk about concerning Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth are its negative aspects. And so first I want to talk about the gameplay aspects of Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. The tutorial is sufficient, but it doesn't keep your retention. Basically, the tutorial, when you start off within the game, it shows you a picture of the mechanic and text underneath it, without allowing you to actually utilize and demonstrate the mechanic that was being explained. Now, I've always shit on mobile games. I despise them. But even though I hate them, they actually have good tutorials. They describe the mechanic, and then literally right after, they give you a chance to demonstrate the mechanic that they just now explained. Just giving us a picture and some text can be easily forgettable because of how much of the mechanics they try to push onto you within the beginning parts of the game. Over cramming you with information, and then you're basically expected to know the concepts without actually getting a chance to demonstrate and prove that you understand what was being explained. And that's kind of my issues with the tutorial, is that it is sufficient, but it's very forgettable and it doesn't keep player retention overall. And this kind of ties in as well with the direction of the game. So for me, I felt like it was easy to get lost within the game. In the beginning of the game, it was generally easy to know where you were going because the characters outright just say where to go next. Near the mid to late game, that's when things started getting a little bit murky, and characters will say something vague, and you kind of have to infer the next location. For example, one word in their whole dialogue box could be highlighted green, and some people might actually catch this, but others like me will read the text fast and will not even notice it until like more than 30 minutes later, when you already wasted your time trying to figure out where to go next because you didn't catch this specific thing that showed up in the dialogue. Or other times, there will be no highlighted text and you just literally have to infer the next location. You just kind of have to guess. And that's what kind of frustrates me. It just wastes so much time when you don't know where to go and the game expects you to know. There's sort of like a quest log in the menu that you can access, but sometimes they won't even show you the case at all. There will be literally nothing there. It's just straight up empty, and you just have to remember where to go next. And for me, that just wastes so much time that I could be doing progressing the story and leveling up my Digimon. And speaking of progressing the story and or leveling up your Digimon, I feel like the game itself can become really grindy if you don't utilize the Digifarm Platinum Sukamon, and Platinum Numemon. Now, for those of you who haven't played Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, the Digifarm it basically resembles the Pokemon Daycare, where you can store Digimon and they will gain levels over time. But unlike the Pokemon Daycare, it has more options that can benefit your overall playthrough. So, for example, the three main options that the Digifarm provides are Train, Develop, and Investigate. Train essentially improves a specific stat depending on which Digimon you set as a leader. So, for example, if the Digimon personality type is Nimble, and you set that Digimon as the leader, everyone in your Digifarm will get an improvement to their speed stat. So, depending on what personality you have Digimon set to the leader, it can change your overall it can increase a specific stat that you want, like attack or defense, intelligence, speed, etc. The second option that you can utilize within the Digifarm is Develop. Develop allows you to gain random items, so it can vary from general HP, SP potions to battle items that you can equip on your Digimon. And the last option is Investigate, which also allows you to gain random items, but it can also give you extra side cases, as I like to call it, or it's basically side quest. Utilizing the Digifarm will determine how much success you can achieve within the game, because it holds such a significant impact to your progress, from leveling up a specific stat, developing certain battle items to equip on your Digimon, and lastly finding more side cases to gain more money and items to allow for more purchases, either for improving the farm or gaining more essential items such as HP and SP potions. The amount of reward that you get from the Digifarm is too significant for it to be underutilized and overlooked. So if you are playing Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, I highly recommend that you utilize the Digifarm and actually understand how to use it. On the surface level, it's easy to understand, but knowing what Digimon you set to the leader and what items can be developed from the Digifarm, you have to dig a little bit deeper to really get the most out of it. So that's why I kind of feel like it's more mandatory if you want to grind less within the game. Another tool that I feel is essential to increasing your rate of progress are Platinum Sukamon and Platinum Numemon. These two Digimon will give your Digimon more EXP after a battle by utilizing their support skill. So, if you don't know what a support skill is, you can think of them as like a passive skill in a MOBA. They essentially provide different buffs without needing you to manually activate it, depending on what Digimon is used within the battle. So, without Platinum Sukamon and Platinum Numemon, the amount of experience gained will be drastically lower, and due to that, overall, you're gonna spend more time farming dungeons rather than progressing the story and obtaining more powerful Digimon. I mean, you can obtain more powerful Digimon as you grind, but most likely, if you're farming dungeons, you're trying to just get EXP to progress the Digimon you already have to further progress in the story. I really dislike that aspect of Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth because you have to sacrifice one member on your team to use a Digimon that you may not even like, just to lessen the burden and to save on time, because support skills can only be activated if your Digimon is alive and active in battle. So, if they are in the back of your party or they fainted within active battle, the support skill will not activate. in comparison to this, I really like the EXP share from Pokemon because I at least get to use the Pokemon I like in battle, and everyone gets at least somewhat of a decent amount of EXP. But in Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, your third member has to include Platinum Sukamon or Platinum Numemon. If it's not in battle and it's behind the party, it's just not going to activate. So, or if Platinum Sukamon or Platinum Numemon dies, to get that overall EXP benefit, you have to revive them. And I just want to use the Digimon I enjoy because there's a lot of Digimon to discover and to kind of play around with, and having to handicap myself just to lessen the burden makes it less engaging and less fun to grind out the game overall. And with leveling and digivolving Digimon, de-digivolving feels bad to me in this game. Depending on what Digimon you are trying to digivolve, de-digivolving is near mandatory, I would say, because of how much ABI you need for higher level Digimon. ABI is basically a stat that increases when you either digivolve or de-digivolve. So you're probably wondering, oh, if you gain ABI through digivolving, then why does de-digivolving even matter? Well, de-digivolving is generally better because not only do you increase your max level, but you also gain more ABI in the process. Because de-digivolving gives you more benefits, it adds to the grind that you have to do because your Digimon go back to a lesser form, and from there you have to level them up again, rinse and repeat until you finally get the Digimon you wanted. So, for example, I would generally say most people understand Pokemon evolution. So let's take my favorite Pokemon, Charizard, for example. You want to get Charizard, okay. So, let's say Charizard requires an ABI of 90. So you have your Charmeleon, and it reached the max level cap of, let's just say, 55, and the ABI is 20, but every other stat requirement is meant to evolve to Charizard, but the ABI is 20 when you need an ABI of, did I say 90? Fuck, I forgot. But yeah, we'll just say 90. So to get the Charizard, you need 90 ABI, and Charmeleon, we have 20. That's not enough, so in order to get more ABI, you basically have to turn your Charmeleon back into a Charmander, and then you level up your Charmander to near max level, then you digivolve again, or no, not digivolve, you evolve to Charmeleon, and then you get, I would estimate maybe up to from 20 to 40 ABI, and you're like, well, I still don't have enough. So then you have to de-digivolve back down again. Well, you level up your Charmeleon, get it to near max level, and then I'm supposed to say de-digivolve, but whatever. Okay, you kind of get the idea, right? You have to de-digivolve again and go back to Charmander, and you just rinse and repeat until you finally get enough ABI. You keep doing this, and it just feels like objectively you are technically making progress, but as a player, it just feels really bad to me, and it feels like you're working backwards. It's just not a good feeling when you're like, damn, I was so close to having enough ABI, but I gotta de-digivolve again. I have to grind at least an hour or two again to get the evolution I finally wanted. So instead of having fun, now I feel like instead of digivolving being fun, now it feels more like a chore than anything else. Okay, so now we talked about the grind within Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, but now I want to talk about the story and gameplay aspects that I feel are inconsistent. So, when you complete a case or a side case, basically cases are a quest. So you could think of a case like the MSQ or main quest, and a side case as like a side quest. So, when you complete a case or a side case, there are instances where you are teleported back to the detective agency, which is great because it lessens the amount of travel time required from backtracking. But there are also instances where you are not teleported back and you have to walk all the way back to the detective agency and manually go to the case board to complete the case. And this is just me nitpicking, of course. People can probably overlook this, but the reason why I have a major problem with this is because it's inconsistent. Either have the game teleport you back after every case, or make us walk back after every case. Having this back and forth just makes it feel frustrating because there are cases where you get teleported, and when you don't, it makes it feel like you got the kind of short end of the stick. Or, in a sense, basically false expectations. Or a false, kind of a... It's like false efficiency, I would say. Another inconsistency within Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, I feel, is the pacing of the game. So, in the beginning parts of Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, you're basically met with a lot of dialogue, which makes sense because it's the introduction to the plot and characters. So they want you to kind of understand the world, the universe, what's going on with it, how, like, basically the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, and why. So having a bunch of dialogue in the beginning is okay. My problem is, in the mid to late game, that is when I felt the game was very inconsistent with its pacing. Either there was just too much dialogue and not enough gameplay in between, or vice versa, there was too much downtime between progression in the story, and you had to grind for hours depending on how long you actually play the game to get to that certain point where you can progress. Also, this is just my own opinion, but I personally felt like the story was all over the place. In the first half of the game, it was relatively easy to understand. But in the later chapters, I felt like the story got so convoluted and just densely packed with information, it slowly becomes hard to follow. And when I finally reached the ending, I didn't get the big picture and the kind of feeling that the director wanted with the ending. I kind of was able to put the bits and pieces together, but it overall lessened the impact the ending had on me. And I felt satisfied with the gameplay, but in terms of story, I didn't have that sense of closure. In addition, it really didn't help that within the character dialogues, there were instances of translation, grammatical, and spelling errors, which also decreased the amount of engagement I had from the story. So that really didn't help. That really didn't help the story's case. And from what I've seen from the internet about Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, most people say that they had a problem with the story and they just skipped most of it, which is fine if you do, by the way. I don't blame you, but I think the story was enjoyable for the most part, but my problem was just the inconsistent pacing of the game, of just too much gameplay or too much dialogue. It just wasn't paced out in a good way. So I felt like if it was paced a lot better, I would be able to comprehend the story a lot more, even with its translation, grammatical, and spelling errors. I feel like I would be able to engage with the story a lot. Basically, it would be a lot easier to be more engaged and willing to go the extra mile to understand what is going on behind the scenes. And real fast, my quick grievances with Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth overall is the Digiline. It's a unique concept. It was unique at first, but then you start seeing the same dialogue options appear, and it just makes the novelty wear off after you reach a certain point in the game. Because you go to the Digiline, and it's cute that your Digimon in the Digifarm is talking to you and stuff like that. But near the mid to late game, you start to see a lot of repeats, and it just gets old. It just gets kind of annoying at that point, because the Digiline, it gives you information of when your farm is complete. So either like the training is done, the development of an item is done, or investigating. So it gives you notification messages like that. And sometimes you're like, oh, a message popped up, and it's just the same dialogue again, and it just gets really annoying really fast. So if Digimon were to use the Digiline mechanic again, I would say to please add more options for the dialogue, because I saw a lot of repeating questions and a lot of repeating statements within the game when reaching that mid to late game. So if they're gonna re-add it again, this mechanic, make more options and or give us the ability to disable it and only allow farm notifications. Another quick grievance I had is the world, in my opinion, doesn't feel fun to explore. So you can only zoom in and out with the camera. You can't really pan 360 degrees, basically. Although you have the options to move in a 3D plane, so like your character, you move 3D, it feels like you're playing a 2D game. So I guess to kind of make this easier to understand, if you ever played a Pokemon game, it feels like the digital parts of the world is a route in Pokemon. It's very linear, and you have this like 3D plane that you can move around in, but you can't pan the camera. So it's just, that's another inconsistent thing that I've had with the game. It's just that for Pokemon, I kind of understand, because it was never, the world was never really emphasized, to me at least. Like, the graphical fidelity of Pokemon was never its main feature when I play a Pokemon game. That's not the main thing that I look for. But in Digimon, because it takes place in a world other than Earth, I mean, it does take place on Earth, but there are other worlds like Eden, the kind of virtual reality world, and then the digital world itself. Because of those two other worlds, I feel like it could have had a stronger impact on me and my desire to explore if I could see everything around me and I could just observe the kind of world that I'm exploring. So just imagine that I could just see all this like digital, I don't know, spaces, I guess, or like, it just doesn't feel as immersive as it could have been. To me, it's a lost opportunity that they could have really capitalized on, but I don't know what the development is like. I don't know if they were on a deadline or they didn't have enough budget, but I really do wish that the world was a bit more immersive. And lastly, if you're considering playing Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, I highly recommend using a controller. Using keyboard, it sucks. It sucks. It is not an enjoyable experience. To me, I felt like the game was mainly created for controller. Like everything was solely focused on controller. So if you want to have an enjoyable experience, I would suggest using a controller. Alright, so I've talked about my negatives with Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. Now I want to cover the positives. So in terms of the gameplay, it's really easy to pick up and play, but surprisingly, it has a lot of depth within the game if you want to take yourself to the next level. I find that Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth is fairly easy to execute. And what I mean by this statement is that if you want to attack, you just select the attack option. If you want to use skills, you just hover over the skills menu and you select whichever skill you want to use. It's that simple. You don't have to go searching over several different menus and you gotta choose all these different options to do one simple task. It's very simple, very easy to pick up and play. To make a comparison, it's just as simple as Pokemon, which makes the barrier to entry relatively low for newer players coming into Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. So if you've played Pokemon, you'll fit right in. Another thing that I love about Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth is the gameplay overall. It's fast, fluid, and responsive. When you click on a move, the animation plays, and the health and numerical damage is shown right after with no delay. This makes the game feel like it's going at a faster pace, which can lessen the feelings of frustration and grind within the game. So, for example, I use Pokemon a lot, but that's because that's the only kind of monster catching game that's relatively similar to Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth that I feel I can make a decent comparison to because I have both experiences within both of these titles. So I am going to be making a lot of Pokemon comparisons and references. So continuing from where I left off, for example, in Pokemon, when you execute a move, there will be a text that displays the message that the move is going to be executed. Then the animation plays, and finally, the opposing Pokemon gets hit, and the health bar slowly goes down. There is a lot of downtime within the battle, and meanwhile, in Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, it's relatively fast compared to Pokemon, because everything happens so fast, there's less dialogue that you kind of have to wait for. It's very fast, fluid, and it's just very responsive. It saves you a lot of time overall. And speaking of animations, I really enjoy the unique animations for special moves. Each Digimon has their own special move and special animation that plays. And I really like the attention to detail of that because it makes the move feel that much more impactful, and honestly, to put it simply, it just looks really fucking cool. I mean, what more can I say? The animations are just so awesome, and I hope that Digimon, if they make another mainline title, to keep this kind of tradition going, because it makes me want to go back and play my completed save file and just gather up more Digimon and just digivolve everybody to their max form, because I'm curious to see how their special animations are, and I want to see kind of the differences and cool particle effects and just the flashiness of it. So it kind of adds to that replayability factor and encourages you to go out and catch more Digimon. So in turn, with catching more Digimon and having fast gameplay, earlier I said that the world is not fun to explore, but what I do like about Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth is that it rewards you for exploring with items. So sometimes you do get mediocre items and that can feel kind of meh, but other times you find a farm expansion plugin which basically enhances your Digifarm, or you get a memory up which you can use to increase your maximum Digimon party limit. So for anyone playing Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, I encourage you to explore, because honestly, you may never know what you may find. There were times that I didn't expect to get something good, and I got a farm expansion plugin or memory up, and I was like, thank God I actually took the time to explore before I went straight to the boss. Because if I missed this, I would have to come back for it sooner or later. So if you are playing, I always encourage you to explore. And earlier again, oh man, this video, this is not structured very well. I'm trying my best, okay? I'm honestly trying my best, but earlier I talked about saving time between gameplay and Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. It actually does save you time within the game due to its graphical style. Unlike Elden Ring, it's not a graphically intensive game, so the load times in between instances and worlds are relatively short, which makes the overall travel time lessen. So right when you finish exploring one world and you finish your case, you just go back to the world map, select where you want to go, and in a matter of maybe 2 to 3, I would say maybe 1 or 2 minutes, 2 to 3, you're right back to playing the game as soon as the world finishes loading. And also, I have a mid-level PC, like I believe it's a GTX 960, and even with that, I rarely felt any type of FPS drop, or any. As a matter of fact, I probably got no FPS drops at all. So very, very well done on the performance side. And just real quick, I'm going to talk about more features that I like about the game. So let's just kind of speed run through here. We got New Game Plus. And if you don't know what New Game Plus is, basically, overall, you start over. But I believe it's a harder difficulty. Let me see again. Let me check that. Okay, so here are the benefits to New Game Plus. All your Digimon as you left them on the previous playthrough, you keep them. All your unusable items, equipment, farm goods, Digimon medals, and Digi eggs. Your money also carries over. Your party memory limit carries over. Your Digifarm's farm islands will retain their ranks. The number of farm islands will also remain the same. The Digibank's scan percentages will remain the same. The Metal Man's metal collection remains the same. Your Cyber Sleuth rank, and you also get to keep your ability to Digivolve into the Royal Knights. So overall, New Game Plus, you get to have more replayability, and if you want to, you can experiment with new Digimon that you haven't really tried out before, and you can do different strategies and different teams and get different Digi evolutions and fill out your field guide. There's a lot of extra stuff that you can do within New Game Plus. So I really like that aspect of the game. I love games that give me more replayability. And as I said before, there's lots of Digimon to capture and lots of strategies that you can build around that. because it's not like Pokemon where you send out one Pokemon at a time. When you battle, you send out 3, so you have a lot more combinations and a lot more strategies to work with. And for me personally, I kind of did something kind of traditional. I believe this is traditional. So I had a healer, I had a physical attacker, and a magic attacker. That was basically my kind of strategy when I formed my team. Either that, or I just chose the Digimon that looked cool. It's very versatile. You're not locked into one playstyle. You can do many things if you wish. Some side cases feel like a whole Digimon episode, which is fucking awesome. Like, I would say that 90% of the side cases are filler content. They're used to just fill in time. But that extra, that 10% where they actually put effort, it was amazing. And towards the end, sometimes they'll have a cliffhanger and I'll get so angry because I wanted to know what happened in the end. That is how good some of the side cases are. So trust me, when you play the game, you'll know what I'm talking about. You'll understand that there are side cases that are filler content, and there are others that they actually put time and effort into. And lastly, the characters within the game are unique. They have personality, and the voice acting is also good for each respective character. I enjoyed our interactions with them and how they play their part in the story and understanding kind of their psychology and why they do the things that they do. Overall, really well done character development. Very, very enjoyable. This video was definitely all over the place, but I wanted to make this video because overall I just wanted to share my experience. I wanted to share my experience with Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth because I want others to experience this game with a more realistic approach. And by explaining my negative experiences about the game and its issues and flaws, I want other players to be able to recognize them and find ways to work around the various problems within. And through this video, hopefully, I can create a more enjoyable and positive experience for others looking to play Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. So, with that being said, thank you for watching the video if you got this far. I hope everyone here has a great day, afternoon, evening, wherever you're at. And until next time, bye!